going to stand on a party manifesto which makes promises, the electorate want you to keep to those promises, don't they?
It's funny because
the part of
electorate
the problem,
never ever say that to me in my constituency.
What do they vote for?
Literally never. No one has ever said to me. But you said in your manifesto, which I very much doubt many people.
So should we take
in
no
my
notice of manifestos?
Read. To be perfectly honest, I think that there is an argument to be said that you can never, ever deliver all of those things that you're pretending that you can deliver when you go to the electorate. And that, in reality, things change. Globally, things change. And situations change, facts change. You have to, as a politician...
It's incredibly honest, Esther, here this morning that you're saying don't trust what's in a manifesto because, let's be honest, we can't deliver it.
Well, not in all cases. Yeah. Because the situation's genuinely changed. I can't control the trade war between America and China. And I have to, each and every day as a politician, I have to look at the facts in front of me. And at the moment, it is genuine on a day-by-day basis, which is not good, because we should have future planning. And I have to say, what is the best decision I can make today to make sure that my constituents are better off? And sometimes I will get that wrong, and sometimes I will stand on platforms and say things that then I find I can't necessarily deliver, and I wish that more people were honest about it.
And don't you think that is part of the huge problem at the moment in the breakdown of trust between the electorate and our elected politicians, that in 2016 the voters were promised a once-in-a-lifetime decision, and 17.4 million people said, right, you've given us this historic vote. We turned out in record numbers. We want Brexit. And 3 years down the line, they feel like it's just being held up and sabotaged.
I mean, I can totally see... I think that there's a number of things that aren't necessary. I don't actually think that they should have been told that no matter what was said, that at any cost, whether that was a cost to our economy, that should never have been said. And anyone who said that was doing this, essentially lying to them, that things are easy. We've got to stop pretending that things are just so simple, because, do you know what? The country can take nuance. It can take hope. It can take a huge... in fact, it doesn't mind if it disagrees with you as long as you're honest with it. And that is the reality that I see all the time. People will write to me every day, and my constituents will say to me, I don't always agree with you, Bab, but do you know what?
They call you Bab.
In Birmingham, they call me Bab, not so much elsewhere. They definitely call me Bab there. But the reality is I'm sick of Brexit. I know how the nation feels. Imagine if it was your every single day of your life. And the idea that we should just get it done, which is what Boris is banking on people feeling, I'm afraid to say that's fundamentally a lie when he says he's getting it done, because no deal is certainly not getting it done. We've got 5 years of this no matter what.
Would you vote for this deal?
At the moment, there isn't actually a deal until the European Union agrees with it.
If they agree to it and if they say, OK, well, this is the basis of which we can work on, would you... Yes, I would vote for it on the basis that I would want it to go back to the people, the terms of the deal. So, yes, I would vote for it based on the idea that there would be a confirmatory referendum so that my constituents get to say whether they like this deal. But more importantly, the constituents in Northern Ireland, I think, are the most important people at the moment in this particular deal.
OK, so if this proposal is agreed by the EU...
I think that's unlikely, Susanna, but yes, let's
imagine...
You
would vote for it? I
would vote for it if it had a confirmatory referendum and went back to the people.
So it needs that as well?
Yeah, it has to have that.
You want a second referendum?
I don't particularly want one.
We don't have to have one.
I think that the only answer, actually, to this deadlock for the nation is for the nation to take part in this conversation again.
You've just said we shouldn't trust politicians, because when we have elections...
I didn't say that we shouldn't trust politicians. I said that
they stand on manifestos that they don't necessarily believe in.
No, I didn't say that they don't necessarily believe in them, that they can't necessarily deliver. They can't necessarily deliver because we don't control everything that happens. Governance is so much more complicated than people want to think.
Democracy's tough.
Want to think that it's a slogan.
Yeah.
People's lives are complicated.
They are.
The world is much more complicated
and they have got more complicated and more threatening. Do you think that Brexit has led to the death threats that you've had, the attacks that you've had, do you think those are directly related to this particular issue?
Yes is the answer to that question, I'm afraid to say. It's not just Brexiteers, though. I wouldn't want to say that one side is... the entire atmosphere of division has led to a much more feral atmosphere. Now, there has always been violence against politicians. There's always been hatred of politicians. I like the idea that this is a new thing. We've not been popular for a long time. But... The reality is at the moment that the level of division and the anxiety that the country genuinely feels, this isn't just politicians, people feel anxious about this, it is spilling out, and it is spilling out aggressively. And unfortunately, there are some politicians who I think are glad that that is the way it is, that are stoking that division.
Did you, I mean, you know, we all saw that parliamentary debate when Boris Johnson came back into the chamber, and it just... the atmosphere just felt absolutely horrendous.
Yeah.
Now, there were horrible words and there was a lot of anger.
Bad tone, let's
but
say.
I would say from politicians on all sides.
Absolutely, you're completely right.
So what is the answer? Is it to keep talking about that language and get people to stop using certain words like surrender, betrayal, traitor? Because, to be fair, those words have been used by Labour politicians as well.
I think that we've fallen down a rabbit hole of talking about language and bad behaviour. I don't want to scrap the word surrender from the dictionary. I use it all the time.
And also, I mean, just talking, you know, Boris Johnson said to Andrew Marr, martial metaphors, these war metaphors he used so often. You yourself use the stab him in the back, stab him in the front metaphor.
Like I say, I think that we've fallen down a rabbit hole of nitpicking over language in so many areas of our life. But the reality is what I want to stop is I want to stop a targeted campaign that uses fear rather than hope to unite the country. And unfortunately, I'm afraid to say that Boris Johnson has a specific campaign that wishes to present the people versus Parliament. It pays his rent. I mean, not rent, his mortgage. I imagine he's got a mortgage, not rent. It pays his rent. It wins him votes to stoke up fear. It's the quickest and easiest way for him to win votes. But it's not the best way, and it's not leadership.
The argument from the Brexiteers is that there's Project Fear on the other side as well, that it's all going to fall apart, everything's going to be disastrous. From when when the referendum vote happened, that's what they were saying. Everything's going to fall apart, there's going to be a recession, the pound's going to collapse, it's all going to be a nightmare. Yeah. And actually, that hasn't come to pass quite like that. And things
we are still in the EU.
Yeah. But it was going to happen from as soon as we took the vote.
Oh, well,
so Project Fear's on both sides.
But the thing is, you're trying to paint me as if I'm, you know, on the Remain side, I'm anti everything, that the Brexit side, I'm anti. I am not either of those things. And I think that the campaign leading up to the referendum on the Remain side, it did not speak to anybody's heart. It tried to do too much of this. And again, it used fear rather than hope, and genuinely trusting the people in the country that they're cleverer than we give them credit for, much cleverer, and that we should talk to them like grown-ups and speak about how it's hard sometimes.
You've written this book, Truth to Power, 7 ways to call time on BS. So Ben Shephard, seems a bit harsh.
It's all about you, Ben.
How ironic that we're talking about minding your language.
But reading this, there's some amazing anecdotes in this, some really extraordinary examples of people who've stood up to bullies and stood up to moments in their lives. I was reading it yesterday. But one of the things you said in the introduction is about making sure that people are heard and listened to. There will be an argument, of course, that the majority of the country voted to leave and they aren't being listened to. And actually, within the democratic process that we all believe and we all hope works here in our government, that actually that vote has happened. They made that vote. They want their voice and their choice heard.
But the idea that I'm not listening to Brexit voters when I spend literally all my day, every day, with my constituents, much more. I tell you what, I'm listening to far more Brexit voters than Boris Johnson is on a day-to-day basis. But they don't always just talk about Brexit. The idea that that is the single thing that defines a person is to reduce our nation to some sort of brawling, stupid mass of people. People are complicated and brilliant, and I want their voices to be heard, regardless of whether I necessarily agree with what they say. Democracy isn't just like, I want everyone to sound like me. And I think that everybody has, as I wrote in the book, has a voice that needs to be heard. And they need to understand the ways that they can do that.
How are you at the moment? Have you got a lot of security measures in place? Because you know, it's a horrible time.
The intro to this, when you talk
you're
about your fear when you answer your phone that you're going to hit the panic alarm that's right by your bed.
Yeah.
And your 9 knocks on your front door. And, I mean, all of that. I mean, the stark reality of that is something that we don't think about, that's how you wake up every single morning.
I wake up every morning, and at the moment I'm getting a huge amount of death threats, a huge amount, and they are ramping up to be incredibly specific.
Do they come via social media or letter or...?
Email, quite a lot, but I've had 2 in the post recently, and I'm getting a huge amount of stuff in the post about multiculturalism being genocide and things at the moment, like really nasty stuff. And on the phone.
Yeah, all of that just goes straight to the police, but somebody, of course, has to read that and is affected by it.
People in my office, many of whom are multicultural themselves, have to sit and open things about how their very existence in the UK is genocide. That's pretty horrendous. So it's not easy. But I suppose the whole thrust of the book is that if you think that giving up and not speaking up in the face of that will make it better, it won't. Doing nothing changes nothing. And so I have to keep going.
Do you still love being a politician, an MP?
I mean, love on some days is not the word that springs immediately to mind. But no, I absolutely do love it. It is a massive privilege, and it's cool as well. I get to do cool things like this.
So you said you sat down and said you haven't had much sleep.
I haven't had much sleep.
Because you're often very fraught. You run around to your friends' houses and you sit down. The first thing they do is they give you some Doritos. And they even give you a bowl of Doritos.
I'm so thrilled. They will be so thrilled.
This has now become your rider.
Do you want to explain why?
Because I'm always late for all events with my friends, and they have always eaten all the dinner, so they always provide me with some Doritos.
There you go.
It's become like the joke.
Jess Phillips, sponsored by Doritos. Other spicy chips also available. Yes.